Hey crew, before we get started today, a bit of an overture. As you may know, for the last couple of years, we've hosted a live panel show at Convergence Con in Minneapolis for a live audience every year, and we generally talk about a specific Star Trek film. Last year we talked about Star Trek 2009. This year, of course, there was no Convergence Con, nor any other con, really, besides virtual ones, and so our planned discussion of Star Trek Nemesis was postponed. But, not to be denied, we arranged our own virtual panel to talk about this. Not very good, but perfect for 2020 Star Trek film, and we had a discussion/therapy session about it that is at least better than getting bit by a murder hornet infected with COVID that really misses seeing movies in theaters. Our original plan was to live stream our discussion, but that didn't work out from a technological perspective, so podcast it became, and we present that discussion in full for you here today. I want to say thanks to everyone who participated, and also maybe sorry, depending on how they feel about the film. We had a great lineup of podcasters and frequent guests on this show to talk about this movie. Please go check out their respective podcasts, which are impressive. Hope you enjoy our talk and that you're a big fan of dune buggies. Stay healthy and safe, and with that, let's get underway. Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Enterprising Individuals, the Star Trek discussion podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about the series, characters, and stories of the Star Trek universe. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and Shinzon of Remus was a tragic figure who never got to live the life of Picard. But on the positive side, he never had to live through Picard's awkward mambo phase. Ugh. I'm joined on this episode by a panel of distinguished guests who will serve as our crew for this mission. First up, she is one half of the hosting duo behind Rosemary's Ladies, a comedy film podcast where two mythical bitches do witty retellings of horror movies, and bad horror movies. It's Jen Dallman. Jen, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
It's great to have you, Jen. Next up, a musician and a podcaster and the co-host of podcasts like Pro Wrestling Required Viewing, Virtual Theater, and the podcast Backtrekking, a show that looks at the inspirations behind classic episodes of Star Trek. It's Gooey Fame. Gooey, welcome back to the show.
Hello. Hi.
Gooey, it's great to have you here. Our next guest, she's the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. She's also the co-host of Discoverage, a live podcast discussing Star Trek Discovery, Picard, and beyond. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to the show.
My pleasure.
Great to talk to you again. And finally, he's a Star Trek fan, a cosplayer, and the co-host of the Delta Flyer podcast, as well as the Stargate Weekly podcast. It's Thad Hait. Thad, welcome back to the show.
I'm glad to be back.
It's good to talk to you again. You've all been granted permission to come aboard. Tonight we'll be talking about the film Star Trek Nemesis, the last of the Star Trek TNG films. When Star Trek The Next Generation premiered in the fall of 1987, Gene Roddenberry and crew were rolling the dice and gambling that a defunct but well-loved series from the 60s could find new life in a reimagined and more contemporary form. And implausibly, it did, breaking viewing records and spawning a number of spin-off shows that were critically acclaimed and well-received by eager viewers. When the time came to put TNG out to pasture, it seemed only natural that the next-gen crew would follow in the footsteps of the original series crew and transition to feature films. But unlike the TOS crew, TNG never quite found its footing at the multiplex. The first full TNG film, First Contact, was a critical and financial hit, but each subsequent film seemed to prove that the crew of the Enterprise E were searching for something they weren't quite finding. Finally, in 2002, Star Trek Nemesis premiered, a film intended to recenter the world of TNG films after the disappointing performance of Star Trek Insurrection. Instead, the failure of Nemesis would lead to the shuttering of the TNG film franchise, which would soon be followed by the cancellation of Star Trek Enterprise in 2005, leaving viewers without any Star Trek to watch on screens big or small. But what exactly went wrong? How did the TNG crew lose its way? And was it audience fatigue or franchise mismanagement that proved to be Picard's true nemesis? And we'll talk about that a little later in the show. Usually at this point in an Enterprising Individuals episode, I ask my guest about their backstory, about how they first became a Trek fan. But you've all been on the program before, and we've talked about your histories with Trek. So instead, let's talk about your history with Star Trek Nemesis. Do you remember the first time that you saw Nemesis and your initial reaction to it? And let's start with Jen. Jen, do you remember first seeing this movie?
Yeah, I think I was probably about 12. We owned it on DVD, which means I currently own it because I stole a lot of my father's movies. And I watched it and I liked it. And so when I found out we were talking about this movie, I literally texted my dad and I was like, did people not like Star Trek Nemesis? Like, I was like, okay, I was 12 years old. Made a lot of questionable movie choices. I liked the Halle Berry Catwoman when I was 12. So like maybe I made a lot of bad choices for movies back then. I gotta say, this was not one of them. This is a good movie.
On your podcast, you're watching horror movies, genre films, sometimes bad films. Could a bad Star Trek film ever make it onto the show?
Ooh. I think I would like to do it. I don't know if my co-host, I don't think she's ever seen an episode of Star Trek. I don't think she has an interest in seeing Star Trek. Yeah. I think potentially I would maybe do Insurrection because I remember I bought it, I turned it on, I watched 10 minutes, and then I turned it off. And that is all I've seen of Insurrection. Maybe it was better. I just remember not liking the first 10 minutes of it.
You know, not having seen Star Trek is not a prerequisite for directing a Star Trek movie.
I learned that apparently.
I know that you covered Hellraiser on your show recently. Were you getting a little Pinhead vibe off of Shinzon like I was?
And I have to say, I was a big fan of his costume. But I definitely thought, I was like, I'm getting some Hellraiser vibes.
I have such lame sights to show you. Gooey, do you remember the first time you saw Nemesis?
I do. I remember so much about it because I think it was maybe in like 2012 I watched it for the first time, actually.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, this was after going through all Star Trek on Netflix and then watching the movies with some friends. And then I remember everything about Nemesis because I remember at the time I was living by myself and I was like, I haven't seen Nemesis. This is the only one I hadn't seen. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna have a good night. I got a pizza, I got root beer. I was like, personal night, gonna relax and watch the old crew I love. And I got to a certain part in the movie, I remember, and I was like, I can't do this anymore, and I stopped watching it. And then I eventually watched the whole thing like last year, and then this is my second time watching it in full.
I'm just imagining a young Gooey just sitting with his pizza, cold, uneaten,
I was
into
disgusted.
His root beer. On the podcast that we host together, Backtracking, we talk about the events or media that inspired Trek episodes. And we've got an episode coming up this week about the connection between The Wrath of Khan and Star Trek Into Darkness. But after watching this, I feel like we could have just talked about Wrath of Khan and this film.
Oh, sure. Yeah. My analogy I would make, even though it doesn't share thematics with it, I just feel like this is the next gen's Star Trek 5. Because where it kind of goes off the rails a little bit.
Yeah. But they're missing like maybe Star Trek 6. Depends on if you like 3 and 1 or not. They're missing some of the good ones, though.
Yeah, maybe that's true.
Ella, when did you first see Star Trek Nemesis?
Oh, I'm sure that I must have been like 12 too. I'm certain I watched it with my dad, and I don't remember like hating it or loving it. I just kind of remember being like, there.
Yeah, it's a movie.
And then when I watched it today, I was like, oh, I'm gonna enjoy it. I haven't seen it in so long. Like, I feel like usually I kind of enjoy movies, even if they're like bad. I'm like, oh, I have a good time, whatever. And it was so brutal to watch it today. And they're putting a new boiler in my building, and so I'd be watching Nemesis and then I have to pause it because of like the sound of just pipes like banging together. And it just became like this entire situation. Anyways, it was rough.
As somebody who experienced TNG secondhand post-air, what was your reaction to seeing the shift in the TNG characters from TV to films? Because they change a little.
Yeah, I guess the movies have always felt like detached to me. Like it doesn't feel the same, and obviously it doesn't really play the same, especially Nemesis is kind of odd. So I guess I don't really, I never rewatch them. I don't really think about them in my head as like canon. I mean, obviously like Data dies or whatever, and that's there, but I just don't really, I don't really think about them or watch them ever.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
No.
Thad, what about you? Do you remember seeing Nemesis for the first time?
I do. I wanted to see it in the theater, but didn't get a chance. I was in 10th grade in high school when it first came out. Mm-hmm. And I remember it came out around Christmas time, but I was doing other things and didn't get a chance to see it in the theater. So I watched it when it came out on DVD. I did make it through the entire thing, but there were a couple scenes where I almost turned it off.
Yeah, just out of like disappointment and disgust, or
yeah, more or less.
Yeah, it's weird because I remember seeing. I saw it when it came out, I believe, and I didn't walk out or anything, but I remember thinking, "Come on, get good! I know it's going to get good," and it just never really does. Star Trek Day was yesterday. Did you get to see any of the panels?
I haven't seen the panels yet because I was working when they were on, and then last night I was watching Nemesis for this.
Oh yeah, well of course, I appreciate that. A lot of people, myself included, were expecting a bunch of announcements about shows and properties that CBS has in development, or possibly some new properties, and there wasn't really. There wasn't a lot of announcements. We got a Discovery Season 3 trailer, and that's about it. Other than what they've already announced that they're working on, is there anything specifically you'd like to see them develop as a show?
My personal wish that I really wish they would do, I'm not sure that it'll ever actually, in fact, I'm positive it will never happen, but what I would love to see would be them to develop the Star Trek novel series, the Vanguard series, into a television show.
That could be really, really good. I'd have to imagine that. I feel like they've taken kind of here and there little bits and pieces of a lot of David Mack's stuff and put it into some of the shows. Yes. Discovery Season 2 is a big example of that, which he is totally gracious about. But I just think it's funny how the cross-pollination in the Star Trek universe works in that way. I would really like to see a property with Janeway, with Kate Mulgrew, who's out there, is doing stuff. And, I don't know how much she's acting except for things like Orange is the New Black. But I'd like to see what happens when Janeway becomes a vice admiral. Yeah,
that's one thing I definitely noticed while watching the movie is this movie takes place 1 year after Endgame, and she has gone from captain
a
to
meteoric
3-star admiral.
Yeah.
Kind of deserve it after all that, you know?
That's
I guess she did. Yeah, it's all back pay, and yeah. But yeah, I just think that they could do something with that. And so she's sort of new to the Admiral office, and people maybe don't respect her and see what we get out of that.
You want an office drama?
Well,
that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, or just a straight office drama. Yeah, she just is the Michael Scott character in over her head. Well, thanks everybody for being here. At this point in a normal episode of the show, I usually ask my guest why they chose the particular episode that they did to discuss, but tonight it's going to be a little different. This has not been so great a year, I don't have to tell you, for just about everyone. And I thought it would only be fitting to talk about a not so great Star Trek film for this year's panel. Last year's show was about reconciling with Star Trek 2009, trying to bury the hatchet with a pretty good film that, however ham-handedly, was trying to reignite filmgoers' enthusiasm for Star Trek cinema, an enthusiasm that was phasered, torpedoed, rammed into, and exploded 7 years before by the film that we're talking about today, Star Trek Nemesis. Is Nemesis the worst Star Trek film? Who can say? It's certainly the lowest grossing Star Trek film. As for its critical standing, it sits at 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, behind the motion picture at 41, Generations at 49, and Insurrection at 54, and it sits handily above the worst rated Star Trek film, The Final Frontier, at 21%. But what does our panel think? What's the worst Star Trek film? Jen?
I'd probably go with the motion picture. I won't count Insurrection, despite I only saw the 10 minutes, so I will not judge it. Like,
Oh, right,
I won't.
that's right. Okay.
That's totally out
Sure.
of the running because I don't want to say, oh, just because I didn't like the first 10 minutes, it's the worst one. So
That's judicious of you. Okay.
motion picture.
Motion picture. Vote for motion picture. Gooey, what about you?
Into Darkness.
Into Darkness?
We just did that whole
It's very fresh in your mind.
episode, and yeah, my pain is very at the forefront there.
I find, and this happened to me with 2009, which I can see. I think it's a pretty good movie, but I hated it. When I saw it in the theater, just because how different it was, and I had to watch it like 6 or 7 times to talk about it last year, and I found myself liking it more and more. I don't know if it was Stockholm syndrome or me just being won over by it, or just the presence of it. You think of cartoons and shows and things that kids love because they saw it when they were kids. And if you look at it objectively now, it's like, that's not so good. But it's just people are used to it. And after watching this a couple times, I'm not so down on Nemesis as I used to be.
I would say that with 2009, like it wouldn't have to exist if this movie didn't exist. So I'm a little bit more down on it.
Ella, what about you?
I think it's Nemesis. I can enjoy the JJ Trek movies. I completely understand and agree with almost all of the criticisms about them. But I can have fun with it. And
Yeah.
I did not have fun watching this today.
You needed some pizza and some root beer, maybe.
I did.
Thad, what's your least favorite Star Trek film?
Well, I will say that I love 2 of the 3 J.J. Abrams films.
Uh-huh.
But the one that I don't love, Into Darkness, I would put below every other Star Trek film. Nemesis is second from the bottom for me. But Into Darkness just pisses me off in a way that Nemesis doesn't.
I watched it recently. I can understand that. It's
with
funny
you.
how I won't go through like the box office of all the films, but it's funny how people's hatred of the films maps pretty well onto the box office. So I don't know if people not seeing it or just seeing it once and being like, translates, to them not buying a ticket for it. But the lower end of those 2 scales is fairly similar. Of course, Star Trek V is on the bottom. For myself, I can't bring myself to fully hate Star Trek V. I think the circumstances of its creation are vastly different than that of Nemesis. When they made 5, they had a first-time director in Shatner. There was tension behind the scenes, and they had a writer strike, a Teamster strike, and budget cuts, and it still made $63 million in 1989 money, which is more than the Nemesis, adjusted for inflation. And Nemesis was developed arguably at like the height of Trek's power and popularity. They had an award-winning screenwriter, and the whole cast was on board, and we got Nemesis. So it's hard to parse the difference between the financial disparities and the critical disparities.
Star Trek V is a little bit more like thought-provoking than Nemesis too. Like even if it's not, it's kind of clunky. You at least got some cool concepts in there.
Clunky is a good way to describe Star Trek V, I think, for sure.
It's fun too at times.
Sometimes it adds interesting things to the franchise that they never followed up on. I mean, like this is the movie they gave us Cybok, Cybok.
B4.
And Shaka. Yeah, right. It stands up there with Cybok on Mount Trek. I mean, it's a movie where we find out that Bones euthanized his dad. I mean, there's some heavy stuff in Star Trek V.
Oh, man.
Do you guys like Nemesis? We know that Jen likes Nemesis, so we'll get to her in a little bit. But Thad, what'd you think about Nemesis overall? You said it's your second least.
I would not
favorite.
classify it as a movie I like. No.
It's on the other side, the wrong side of like. Okay.
Yeah.
Ella, what about you? You really hate it, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be like, oh, I hate that movie, like, and be mad, but I don't love it. It's not my favorite.
Gooey, you're a pretty magnanimous guy. I mean, can you see the bright side in Star Trek Nemesis?
Yeah, I think there's stuff in it that would be like make for some cool stuff. Like I like maybe a idea of like a Riemann Romulan conflict like that. And I actually did like how kind of like over the top monstrous like movie villain they kind of looked. I thought that could be kind of cool as like these guys who are like monsters are actually kind of like oppressed or something like that. You know, a story around that is interesting. And I did like Shinzon's outfit. I'll get down with that too. So like conceptually it's cool, you know, and seeing like the Romulan Senate and some of their costumes too look kind of cool. It looked a little cheesy or something, but I liked it.
I wonder if it would be, because the whole thing feels kind of small to me. Like the only real exteriors that they do are for the driving scene. And the Romulan Senate is like cool, but maybe Star Trek films have always had a kind of a smaller sensibility, but the whole thing feels just kind of small to me. Not in a like a terrible like movie ruining way, but it just kind of feels kind of low budgety, and you know it costs like upwards of $60 million. So I don't know.
I thought of one other thing I liked because I've been bringing it up on the past couple episodes of our show Backtracking, that I want to see battle bots. I want them to make ships into like robots that fight each other and smash into each other. And this one they had the Picard slams the Enterprise into whatever the Riemann ship is, and that sort of fulfilled that dream of mine to see two ships smushed together.
Yeah. Anybody catch that the scimitar looks like a lionfish? And of course Picard had a lionfish in his aquarium in his ready room.
It's because they're the same person.
Oh God. Jen, tell me why this movie works for you, or what's winning about it.
Okay, it's definitely not a perfect movie. I totally understand why people don't like it. I completely understand. There are a lot of issues, but I do like I like sort of like seeing Picard have to like see, you know, he never got married, he never had kids, but he has kind of a paternalistic role with a lot of people on the ship, and seeing them sort of get married and move on to other ships and sort of move on with his life while he stays there. I think I like seeing that. And then sort of the discussion of like what makes us human, and Picard says it's the trying to be a better person, or just trying to be better the next day than you were before, or whatever. That's what it is to be human. And the idea that it's not what your genetics are, that doesn't really, like, just because you have the same genes or the same blood as someone doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be the same person. And how Shinzon really can't like understand that their life experiences, for one, make them different. But also, I think Data just says, like, even if you had experienced the same things you wouldn't be doing the same thing that he's doing. So even if you're literally the same genetics, same experiences, you can still turn out completely different.
There's a real current of that, you know, throughout the movie. And that's a great point about Picard's been doing this for years. Like, he's been sort of parenting or kind of shepherding Data into humanity. And then Shinzon's like, you know, well, I want to be a human, or what's it? I want to touch a human woman's hair. We know that much. But it's all like, I don't know, it's so on the surface and yet it's so unexplored.
Yeah, I think if they had cut out the 45 minutes of action at the end that no one asked for, and instead tried to get like focus deeper on those sort of issues, I think it would have turned out better. Obviously, big part of the problem is when you have a director who says, no, I'm not going to watch the show. Yeah,
that's not great. And they did want to plug a lot of action into the film, and a lot of the stuff, you know, reportedly there's, you know, a half an hour, like 40 minutes of deleted scenes. A lot of the deleted scenes you can see on YouTube or on the DVD, and a lot of it, they're not really great, but they are that more emotional part of it. It's more scenes with Picard and Data. It's him still kind of striving at this point in his existence, Data, to understand humans, and it's Bev talking to Picard about his future and stuff. And I you can see where they were going, and I'm not one of these people that thinks that like a director's cut can solve everything. You know, it's fine to be Ridley Scott or Zack Snyder and do an extended cut of your film, but you know what people see is kind of what they get. And like you're right, like what we get is, I think, a pretty cool ship battle at the end and a really long dune buggy scene for some reason. And it just it really drains a lot of I think the significance out of the film. Something else that I thought was interesting was that. You know, you were talking about him trying to convert Shinzon or reach out to him. In all 4 TNG films, he reaches out to the bad guy in that Picard way, and they all pretty much turn it down and all have to be blown up, which is so weird. Like, what would happen if, you know, they didn't know this was going to be the last TNG film, but there was a good chance. What if he did, like, turn Shinzon around? What if he did convert him? Like, what if he did make him see his humanity and he just goes to prison island and thinks about his life for a while or something like that? You know, we don't get that. And the only really redemption that we get is in Insurrection, where they get the Sona, besides Salieri, to sort of turn around and unite them with their families again. There's not a lot of the kind of heartfelt emotion and learning that you get on the TV show and the films.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other things I like that I think they more focused on it in the deleted scenes is, and I would have liked to see more in the movie, is Picard, like, sort of having to mentally deal with the fact that 1, his DNA was stolen, 2, there's a clone made, and 3, he's not the only, like, you know, sort of like I was saying, sort of that individuality that we each have, like, and that's something they kind of talked about in the deleted scene. Like, he's having a really hard time with the fact that there's another Picard out there. Yeah.
What I don't really believe is that he would worry at this point in his life when he's even joking around with people and he's driving dune buggies. I don't really believe that he would be worried that he could have been Shinzon or that he could go bad. I think that he should be, because I think this is important. And again, I don't think the movie really follows through on this, but they bring the photo album back, you know, and he's looking through the photo album. And the last time that we saw that was when his family died. And so I wish that they had played up more the idea of him seeing Shinzon as, again, a chance for the Picards to live on. Not necessarily a son, but definitely somebody that he could mentor and not see this tortured soul who has been through a lot, let's be honest, fall into like just hate, you know, and conquest.
Yeah, I did like their conversation when he first goes to meet Shinzon, and you think like, oh, he just wants to be friends. And he's asking oh, were we Picards? Were we always explorers? And Picard, he gets this like faraway look in his eye, and he's like, oh, let me tell you about the Picards. And I was the first one to go to space. And
yeah.
So I there's stuff there, but it's very surface level.
And that's all just recreational for Shinzon, because the Viceroy comes in and he's like, hey, come on, we got to do this plan. And Shinzon's like, I was just talking to him. Like, he wants this, but he can't have it.
It lacks nuance that you want.
Yeah, it certainly does. Thad, like, as far as like Shinzon goes in the realm of Trek villains, maybe just TNG, but maybe all the films, where do you think he lies?
Oh boy.
He is possibly, just to cut in, he's possibly the most powerful villain that's not like godlike that we've seen. I mean, he is in control of essentially the entire
does
Romulan
have a lot of power.
Empire.
We never see another Romulan in complete control of the Empire. The closest would be Sela, but she's not really in complete control.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Shinzon, if you're looking from a strictly character sense, yes, I think he is a very powerful villain. If you're looking from a does the character work sense, ooh, that's harder. What I'll say is I'm really glad this movie didn't ruin Tom Hardy's career.
Oh, yeah. That's an interesting story. Well, we'll talk about that when we talk about the cast. Do you think that the Tal Shiar was still decimated after the Dominion War and Aberntain's his little shenanigans?
Yeah, because they basically all got swept up in that. If they had been around, there definitely would have been some shenanigans. There needed to be more backstabbing Romulan shenanigans, honestly.
It's weird that a bunch of Nosferatus could just like kind of walk in and like just take over the entire empire, but that's what we got. Just for the record, what's everybody's favorite Trek film? Ella, what's your favorite Trek film?
Star Trek 4.
Star Trek 4?
Yeah.
Gooey, what about you?
Yeah, I would say I would go with Star Trek 4 also. Tied with Khan, maybe, but 4's got it's so fun.
It's so likable.
Yeah. Thad, what's your favorite Star Trek film?
6.
Nice.
Star Trek 6? I like that one too. What about you, Jen?
The Voyage Home. It's so funny. It makes me laugh so much.
I wish, yeah, I like it too, and I want it so bad, like Shinzo. I want it to be my favorite. But I've been talking about comedy on Trek on the show a lot recently, and it absolutely succeeds. It's like the exception that totally disproves my rule about how Trek can't be funny. But just for some reason, when I laugh at it, but it doesn't feel fully like a Star Trek film to me. Maybe for good or bad, I don't know.
That's why I kind of like it, because like a lot of Star Trek, even this Nemesis, it feels like they do a lot of the same things that a lot of the other movies do. There's a guy, he wants revenge. He's got a big ship. That's true. You know,
that's absolutely
like
true.
Yeah,
he's got the biggest ship. Yeah, right.
Like I like that they succeeded in doing a different genre, which I think you should do with more Star Trek films. Like goof around with it.
I'm surprised nobody said Khan. What do you guys think about the similarities between Khan and this film?
Ooh, I mean, I feel like even though Khan has such a small, like he has kind of a small backstory, and like, you know, it's very like smaller. He has small moments in the movie, but like they just get so much more across with his character, and it's less complicated. So it's like I think it's way more effective.
Thinking about like Data's death in Nemesis compared to how completely like destroying it is when you watch Spock's death scene, like it's so much more like intense. You feel it so much more. I don't know.
Yeah, even now knowing that Spock is eventually fine. Like I watched Khan recently, and it's still, I cry every time.
It's so hard. Me too. I can't. It's like I almost avoid watching it because I just cry.
I think part of the problem with Data's death is like it doesn't matter because he at the end B4 is singing Blue Skies or whatever, and you're like, oh, so it didn't even matter. They're gonna like call him Data now, and he's Data.
Which the ethical implications of that are chilling. And as usual, Geordi tries to raise a flag and nobody listens to him. In the film, he's like, should we be overwriting his brain with yours?
No.
Nobody's going to listen? Okay, we're going forward with this.
Data's like, look, Geordi, I gotta die in like 60 minutes. So you're going to have to get over it.
That's going to happen. It's so B4 is for me one of the most tragic characters in the entire franchise because, you know, this movie, of course, nobody liked it, so we all tried to forget about it. They literally just had B4 become Data, essentially, you know, in the books after this, and then even when Picard rolls around, they go, "Yeah, it just didn't work." And then we took him apart, and now he's in a drawer. And that's it for Data, or for B4. Like, that's the end. It's sad. He didn't deserve that. He's not, and he gets compared to Shinzon.
Mysteriously as he arrives.
Yeah, he gets compared to Shinzon in this sort of parallel story that they've got going on between people that are related. And B4 doesn't deserve that. Like, he's not Shinzon. He didn't decide to do the things that Shinzon did.
Yeah, B4 doesn't really even seem to understand like where he is or what's going on.
Yeah.
He just seems really confused in general.
Which is so weird for a couple reasons, because of course this movie was written by John Logan, who is a friend of Brent Spiner's, a great friend, and Brent Spiner contributed to the story of this film along with Rick Berman. So we know that Brent Spiner loves putting on cowboy hats and doing funny voices when he gets a chance. They built him this character that's just so kind of nothing. It's not a chance for him to stretch his legs. It's not a chance to bring like Laura back and twist the mustache. He's just kind of not really much. And they kill him off. And when they kill him off, it's got to be hard to replicate the emotions that a scene like Spock's death scene evokes in Wrath of Khan. I think Into Darkness proved that. But write him some scene that's more than just, goodbye. And then, you know, he blows up and that's kind of it. Like, write something that tries to evoke a similar feeling instead of just Brent Spiner kind of wanting to leave because he doesn't feel like he can play Data anymore.
Yeah. I think, and I know, you know, the whole Data's whole story arc through the entire series is trying to understand what it's like to be human, and kind of like Shinzon, but more than that, trying to understand human emotion. So I would have liked to see some sort of callback to, you know, maybe he gets to feel a human emotion. That's probably not going to happen because that's not how robots work. But like trying to understand human emotion still, like, you know, or trying to understand death in like that last minute. I think that, you know, there would have been something.
Yeah.
Or I feel like maybe they could set up like he makes like the sacrifice out of like some sort of feeling other than like his. It's because it's like of course he's like gonna protect Captain Picard. We all know that,
right?
You know, maybe if he makes a irrational but like emotional choice, you know, that would have been more effective.
Yeah, I agree.
It's hard to read too much into the film because I don't honestly think, you know, John Logan is apparently a super, you know, Trek fan, and he has written some, you know, good movies, but I don't think anybody thought about it all that much.
No, I think we've thought about it a lot more than they have.
Just in this show. Yeah. I was really digging in and I was trying to think like maybe he finally accepts that he's not human, that he, you know, he has human qualities and he can be accepted as human, but he isn't, because what really saves the day is that he's not human. Like what saves the day is that he can survive in a vacuum and fly from one ship to the other.
Oh, I didn't like that.
You know, I mean, it's, if he was just a human, we'd all just have to watch Captain Picard blow up on this ship. But then the movie isn't thinking about that. I don't think.
Yeah, I think they probably just set out to like, let's make like a big cool action movie, and we'll have some like cool like things that people could think about in there, and they have like the parallels between Data and Shinzon that they want to set up, and it's like that in some movies that is good enough.
Yeah.
You know, you can kind of draw your own kind of conclusions from it, but it just feels weird here.
Yeah. I'm doing a lot of drawing. My hand hurts. Well, just to say, technically, before we continue, this movie is, of course, the 10th Star Trek movie to come out, the 4th TNG-involved film. It came out on December 13th of 2002, and, of course, it was written by John Logan, directed by Stuart Baird, produced by Rick Berman. The star date for the film is 56844.9, and the budget was $60 million or around there. It made $43 million domestically and $24 internationally for a worldwide total of around $67 million. It was rated PG-13 and has a runtime of 116 minutes. And let's talk about the people that made this film, the creative team. And we can discuss some facts about the film in general. If you don't know John Logan, he is a 3-time Academy Award nominee. He was nominated for his work on Gladiator and The Aviator, and also for Hugo from 2011. And he started off as a playwright and turned into a screenwriter. He received the Tony Award for Best Play in 2010 for the play Red. And he's written for movies like Any Given Sunday, The Last Samurai, Skyfall and Spectre, Alien Covenant, and won a Golden Globe for writing Sweeney Todd. And, he's the real deal. But, you know, like I said before, he's a friend of Brent Spiner's, and he got Brent Spiner's help on this. And I never understand how somebody who's an actor, you know, people move behind the camera, maybe they move off and do other stuff, but how does, like, the guy that plays Data get a story credit on a Star Trek film? You know, like, how does he get input? Patrick Stewart doesn't have a credit, but we all know that, like, the driving scene and a lot of elements of the film were kind of suggested by him. Like, who's running the asylum here, the inmates or the guards?
Sometimes that's the problem with some of the movies is you just give someone too much power, and then they have too much creative control. Like maybe Star Trek V, I think Shatner maybe had a little bit too much to say. I don't know.
If they'd had the money, it would have worked. Rock monsters. Yeah, Thad knows what I'm talking about.
I do.
It's, you know, it's funny because, like, he's a mixed bag for me. Like, a lot of the things that he's worked on, they're good, or things that he collaborated on. I could take or leave his Bond films. And Alien Covenant, you know, I don't know. I mean, let's... Oh no, I'm supposed to like Alien Covenant?
No.
Oh, no.
Like
That's my reaction to Alien Covenant.
But a lot of that could have been Ridley Scott. I mean, he, you know, he was heavily involved in that. And The Aviators, it's okay. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
To come to think of it, like Alien Covenant, when I saw that, and when I saw
That was the worst Trek film?
No. When I saw that and Spectre, I saw both those in theaters, and I remember distinctly leaving those going, maybe these are running out of gas.
He's the series killer.
That's kind of how I feel about it.
Definitely.
We bring John Logan in to finish this thing off.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good point.
It might not be his fault. Like, he might be taking projects of, like, series that need to be, like, revitalized, but instead, like, all of them are like,
they're on the bubble.
Do another Bond, do Alien again, you know, give us another, make Khan, you know.
We want to do another one, but we also might just, like, cancel the whole thing and blow it up. So John Logan, like, that's the guy who, like, accepted the lowest bid, and so he gets in there. You know, reading up on what he was looking for when he wrote this script, he had epic plans for this film. The film was supposed to be about a third longer. God, imagine that. The ending battle was supposed to be bigger. There was a lot more character.
What?
Yeah, there's supposed to be like a fleet of like 6 Romulan ships that would come in and help out against the Scimitar. There's a lot more character work that he had in the scenes that were cut. I also think that, like, Logan and the others in the production, especially I think Spiner too, were all hoping that they could do one more TNG film, and that one was going to be a celebration and a kind of send off of the TNG crew, and they were going to bring in the Titan, you know, Riker's on the Titan, and other characters from other shows, and have a sort of like how All Good Things was a send off, you know, for the TNG show. And you know, that didn't happen.
They counted their chickens.
And Stuart Baird was going to direct that one too. And if you don't know who Stuart Baird is, it's funny because he is a very talented film editor who got to start working with directors like Ken Russell and Richard Donner. And he had worked on Tommy, Superman, Lethal Weapon, Demolition Man, the first Tomb Raider film and the recent Tomb Raider film. And he actually was nominated for an Academy Award for his editing for Superman and for the film Gorillas in the Mist. And he has been nominated for a couple BAFTAs, too. He had directed 2 films before this, neither of them all that great, Executive Decision and U.S. Marshals. And Nemesis, incidentally, was the last film that he directed.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is he still editing? He's still editing, though, you know.
Oh, no, he's still editing, for sure, yeah. But, yeah, he never got a chance to hone his craft, I guess. He did not have a background in Star Trek. He was aware of the franchise. He never watched any films that I know of, I think he said at one point he had never watched the show. And Berman's excuse was that this would be fresh blood. You know, this guy he's directed 2 action films, one had Steven Seagal in it, and he's gonna come in here and shake things up. And people were not impressed with his work. Apparently, speaking of Alien, he like wanted to have that scene where Riker, you know, is fighting the Viceroy in the bowels of the ship, and he said, "This is our Alien scene here. This is going to be like Alien." And of course, ironically, Ron Perlman is in that scene, who was in Alien Resurrection.
That whole scene makes no sense in the entire movie, and yeah, wow.
it
I felt like
doesn't.
it was like, we got to give Riker something to do.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Other movies
The hero moment.
Yeah. Other things handle it better when they just go, okay, Picard is on whatever adventure and Riker's actually the captain. And I think that's usually the best way to handle it, is like make Riker the Enterprise guy on the Enterprise, you know, which could easily happen on this.
Yeah. But they did that last film.
Yeah, I guess so. That's true.
Yeah.
Can't keep doing it again. But they did a lot of stuff they've done before again, so I don't know.
What really worries me about all of that is that the whole thing is the culmination of this side runner story where Shinzon and the Viceroy, I guess, are, you know, being predatory towards Troy, and we have this whole kind of psychic, you know, mind violation scene.
That's when I almost turned the movie off the first time.
That's when I stopped watching the first time too. I was like, this is
bogus.
And so this is Riker. You raped my woman. This is him. Getting his and completing the circle, right? So, well, my biggest regret is that this is my favorite anecdote. In the scene where he kicks the Viceroy to his death, he was scripted to have said, "Don't worry, hell is dark." Bam, and then kicks him off.
That would be
which
way
he
better.
Didn't like, and the test audiences didn't like.
Such a cool, ridiculous line to say.
I know. Steer into the ridiculousness of the film, but of course, it's not very Star Trek, and they cut it. But what do they know?
It'd be great if Riker all of a sudden had like Seagal moves and say line.
Yeah, he's just somebody pulls a phaser on him and he does that the wrist thing and just knocks it out of his hand, and yeah, that would have been great. Picks up a guitar, starts playing. Well, we didn't get that. We did get a movie produced by Rick Berman. Anything anybody wants to say about Rick Berman, just generally?
That's an entire podcast in and of itself.
Yeah. I think, if we're going to skip the specifics, it just seems to me like everybody was tired. The cast is tired. The production's tired. I think that Enterprise is a lot better than anybody gives it credit for, but it definitely shows signs of just kind of, whatever, just kind of goes off the rails a little. And I think that really spread to this film. They talk about audience fatigue in relation to this film, but I think production fatigue was a huge part of it all falling apart.
I think it didn't help that the cast hated the director.
Yeah,
they still hate him. They're still mad.
Yeah.
I think that it never was going to be a huge blockbuster success, but I think it could have been a decent film that did all right as far as Star Trek films go in the hands of a better director.
Yeah, I agree.
I think, in the hands of a director who respected and appreciated the show for what it was.
Yeah.
That, and then I just feel like they spread themselves too thin. Like there's so much going on that could be much more dramatic or much more emotionally deep, but then it all just kind of happens and we don't really sit in anything, I feel.
Right. It feels like it should either be a movie about their dual natures and their other selves, or a movie about the Romulan oppressing the Remans or something, but instead it's but also the Reman is a Picard clone. It just feels very, too many things going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of little hats in this one. This is the only Star Trek movie to not finish number one at the box office on its opening weekend. It's of course the lowest grossing Star Trek movie in the franchise. It has nothing to do with anything, but it's the first Star Trek movie to not name the cast in the opening credits, and that might be because they'd have to make all the E's backwards. What was going on with? Did you guys notice that in the beginning? It's supposed to be a mirror image thing, I guess, but I was just thinking it was Cyrillic or something, the Romulans or Russia. I don't know.
I just thought, what year was this again?
2002.
So this is just after the peak of nu metal. So I was thinking Korn was really big at this time.
Wow.
I could see it. That feels right.
And so that backwards R carries a lot of weight. And just looking at the Remans, I feel like you could get some mall goths to go to this movie.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So you said it didn't close number one in the box office this opening weekend. What movies was it up against?
It was up against Made in Manhattan. That's what it lost to.
Oh boy,
that's what beat it.
Yeah, it's first week, and then of course it is coming out at the same time that Two Towers is coming out.
Mm-hmm.
What else was coming out then? There was a Bond movie, a bad one, but Die Another Day was coming out, and then Chamber of Secrets was coming out too. So
man.
this was a bad time to come out.
You can draw some real parallels between this and Die Another Day too, if we want to talk about ridiculous, over-the-top action sequences that make no sense in a tired franchise.
I remember the commercials for Made in Manhattan, but I don't remember any commercials for Nemesis, so it probably has a lot to do with it.
I don't
Effective
either.
marketing.
The only thing I remember from Nemesis was during one episode of Enterprise, they showed behind the scenes clips of Nemesis during each commercial break and made a big deal about it. That's the only thing I remember.
Okay. That's kind of weird. Well, this was Jerry Goldsmith's final score for a movie. He died in 2004, soon after this came out. And it's an okay score. A lot of stuff was cut out of it, and I think that he was really restrained in like what he could really do. They also just use, his theme from Star Trek, the motion picture a lot in it, which of course is the show theme, but still. Let's talk about the cast in the film. And this film was a surprise for some of the cast. Everybody's contracts with the studio were up after the last film. I read that Patrick Stewart was paid almost as much as he made for the entire run of TNG to be in this. So I think a lot of the budget went to like these, a single picture contract is a lot less economical than getting somebody in for like 2 or 3. And so having to boot everybody's contracts up again was a big part of the expense of the film. And the whole cast is here, although some of them weren't. Marina Sirtis almost didn't come back because I don't think they were going to give her what she wanted. And I believe as the story goes, this is where Jerry Ryan was contacted about possibly being in the film to replace her, to which she was like, why would I be in this movie? Like, I don't know these characters. I don't have anything to do with this. I got Boston Public money. So she didn't do that. And luckily we got Marina Sirtis. Jonathan Frakes, of course, is back as Riker, although his back hair isn't. Reportedly, he refused to shave his back for his love scene with Marina Sirtis in the film. So they digitally removed his back hair for that scene. How much did that cost?
Too much.
Wow.
That's a firm stance
Why
against
was
back
that
hair.
in the budget?
What is the point of that?
He had to have it for
a
Mission Impossible movie.
Literally.
Oh my God. Michael Dorn is back as Worf, and they don't even bother with an explanation this time. He's just there. I think the consensus sort of headcanon is that he decided he wasn't cut out to be an ambassador, Worf, or maybe that was in a previous draft of the script. And he doesn't do much in the film, and Dorn was not crazy about that. And this is weird, and I can't say that I noticed it in the film, but I read that they pitched his voice down to make him sound more alien.
What?
Like the director thought that he should sound more alien. Apparently he thought that LeVar Burton's character was an alien too. I don't know why they didn't pitch Geordi's voice down. He's the Neutrogena T-gel guy. How much lower can his voice go?
Jeez.
Like, Worf already has a low-pitched voice. That's like part of the
Yeah.
thing.
But instead he's like, I'm not gonna be naked. I don't know. Gooey, you're a big Worf stan.
I love
Why
Worf.
does Worf always get Why does he always get pushed to the side in the films? He's always like the target of the punchlines.
I think because he he's got a big alien forehead, right?
Well, that is true. He does.
I don't know. And I think it's probably. I feel like it's probably similar. Why like there's at least good Worf stories, but there's not really good like Geordi stories. And I think it probably has to do with that they're black men, and they probably just don't know what to do with them as much, like
the side scene at the wedding where it's Michael Dorn, Whoopi Goldberg, and LeVar Burton. it's all the POCs in the cast. And it's just like wah wah, and they just kind of
right,
move on.
Yeah. Worf at least gets good stuff in the shows and stuff. Like they know he's a good character, but yeah, he's never that cool in the movies.
I didn't like that he was like hammered or hung over at the wedding. Like Worf's pretty abstemious. Like he's not like a real.
He'd be drinking prune juice. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I don't know why he was like hung over at the wedding.
I think that's what I felt a lot of that with the characters in this. It also reminded me of Star Trek V was it just felt like the characters almost start to become like kind of parody of themselves, and they're there to crack some jokes. Whether it makes sense, like why does Worf say in the movie, like, doesn't he say like the Romulans fought with honor? And Riker goes, yeah, they did. And it's like, no, they didn't. And Worf would never say that.
Right. Yeah.
I think that was supposed to be like a big moment for Worf to acknowledge that the Romulans fought well, but like they didn't fight well because they got like destroyed almost immediately. So like the dialogue would have worked if they had actually fought well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And for me, that's a great point. I can totally see that they need to like sell that for the end of the movie and the suggested alliance they're going to have. But that's the longest trip to take in this film. Like these guys staged a military coup and wiped out the rightful government of Romulus. And just because Dina Meyer's there and she wants to have a drink with Captain Picard, like, we're going to deal with them at the end of the movie? Like, we're back. It's worse than when we started. Now there's like a power vacuum at the center of the Romulan Empire, and it's controlled by murderous generals.
Maybe if it was more focused on that, like, you could have had a Worf story where he, like, kind of like that one episode where Geordi's like stranded on the planet with the Romulan, where you like learn to work together. Like, give Worf a like learn to be friends with a Romulan story, like a side story.
They're both assigned to defense of the Enterprise E or something like that for boarding parties, and they have to kind of work together, and then they one saves the other, and they go, all right, you're okay,
something like that.
Or a line. They fought hard. They fought well.
Yeah, lame.
Tom Hardy's in the film, of course, as Shinzon, and this was Hardy's first major role in a film. And he, of course, went way beyond this to be a successful TV and film star. But he took the failure of the movie very personally. Apparently, he got severely depressed. He started drinking. He got a divorce.
Buddy.
And he considered suicide. But he eventually pulled himself together, and he was cast in the movie Bronson in the titular role. Anybody seen Bronson?
No, actually, I've heard about it. I've never seen it though.
Me neither.
It's a film by Nicholas Winding Refn.
Oh.
And it's about a guy who, I can't remember his real name, but he changed his name to Charles Bronson, and he's like a professional prisoner. Like he made being a prisoner, a violent prisoner, like his thing. It was kind of like a celebrity, like a YouTube celebrity before YouTube. Like he was just always locked up.
Wow.
But anyway, the guy is jacked, that character. So this is the start of jacked Hardy. So what I'm proposing is that the failure of Star Trek Nemesis gave us Bane.
Yo.
Oh, good point.
We never would have got there if he hadn't taken this really hard, had a few lost years, and then like found Jesus or his dogs or something like that, and just started pumping iron, and now he's back. He's Bane.
I don't know if I want to live in a world.
Kind of made the franchise feel tired.
Oh. Yeah, I wasn't really big on that movie either, so. But I wouldn't want to live in a world without Venom, so it evens out.
No, me neither. Me neither. The rest of the cast is rather distinguished. Of course, we've talked about Ron Perlman. Perlman and Hardy became good friends on the set. And Perlman had said in an interview after the release of the film that he loved working with him, found him to be really smart, really a great kid. So I hope to see Ron Perlman in Venom 2. Also, of course, we mentioned Dina Meyer, who's in the film. She's had a long career in Hollywood. She's been in films like Starship Troopers, Johnny Mnemonic, and Dragonheart. Also, Jude Sikuela is in the film as Commander Saran. He's had a long career in film and TV. He's been in Shawshank Redemption, Glenn Ross, and he played the Chief of Staff, Mike Novick, on 24 for 4 years. And, oh boy, director Bryan Singer has a small cameo in the film as the tactical officer, yes, who replaces Worf when they go down to fight the Remans.
Sweet.
Which, you know, at the time, yeah, sweet at the time. Looking back, maybe not so great.
It's good for all the Singer fans out there.
Well, of course, you know, Patrick Stewart was Professor X.
Yeah.
But there you go. Whoopi Goldberg is back as Guinan for that wedding scene, and Will Wheaton appears barely in this film as Wesley Crusher. LeVar Burton had approached the filmmakers early on and suggested that they ask Wheaton to reprise his role. What's he doing there? Is he back in Starfleet? Is he still a traveler?
He's wearing a Starfleet uniform with an ensign tip.
Yes, he is. Well, actually, it's a lieutenant junior grade, and Wheaton didn't know when
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't know when they were filming what he was doing there, and neither did John Logan, who told Wheaton on set that he didn't know, and the audience would have to figure it out. Although there is a deleted scene. There's a deleted scene that establishes that he will be the assistant chief engineer on the Titan going forward.
They try to explain it in the novels. I believe
Really?
in the novels, yes. So they wrote a whole series of novels to try to reconcile where things are at the beginning in Nemesis with where things were at the end of Insurrection.
Yeah.
And it's been a really long time since I read them, but I seem to recall the thing was that Wesley came to the wedding and took a corporeal form just for the wedding and showed up without clothes, so they gave him a uniform.
Okay. Okay. All right. I can see that.
Best explanation. Yeah.
I guess he didn't bring a gift.
Probably not. No.
So after the wedding is over, he just travelers off and the clothes fall to the ground, I guess.
He thought they were doing the Beta Z wedding first. And he was like, well,
Yeah, that makes
sense. Gotta be naked for this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a glaring absence in this film. I've heard different reports, but Majel Barrett was, I think, sick at this time with the illness that would claim her life. But she was also working on, was it Earth Final Conflict? I think she was, involved in producing that. So that's sort of why they set up that the Beta Z wedding, will take place later, and they're going to head there before they're interrupted by the events of the film. But yeah, it would have been nice to have seen her again. And of course, Kate Mulgrew appears in the film as Vice Admiral Janeway in a brief cameo, which is clearly not written for her. Those lines could be put in the mouth of any old admiral, Nechayev, whoever, but it was nice that she accepted that and we got to see her again. I don't know about this movie, man. It's...
I haven't convinced you guys.
Well, I mean, I'm trying. I'm working real hard to try to like this film. What strikes me about it, and we've talked about this before, but it's just, I don't know if it's lazy or it's homage, but there are elements in this film that, are just clearly plucked from other films in the series. The elements that are similar to A Wrath of Khan, Riker kicking a guy in the face, off a cliff or down a hole. The closing scene, and I think this is more telling than they expected it to be, but the closing scene has the Enterprise in dry dock over Earth, and they're playing, the Star Trek, the TNG theme from the motion picture, and that's how we open. We open with seeing the ship in dry dock. So it's almost like it's full circle. They're bringing it home, putting it in the dock, putting it away. We're not going to see another Star Trek film for a while.
Yeah.
I know that walking out of the cinema, for me, that's how I felt. I felt like, well, this is it, at least for a while.
It makes sense that, they went to J.J. Abrams or whatever after this, because it does feel like it needs like a new boost, a new like breath in the series, something new and exciting. So, yeah.
I don't know who made that decision, at Paramount, because, of course, Berman was gone by that time, but it's such a, who's hot? Get me J.J. Abrams. Like, sure, the guy was successful, but why J.J. Abrams? What makes you think that J.J. Abrams is the guy to do Star Trek? I mean, he didn't even really want to do Star Trek and jump ship almost immediately for Star Wars when he got the chance.
Just seemed like an exciting guy. I don't know.
He had a killer pitch.
Probably because it's like, it doesn't need to seem like a Star Trek guy. We want a new...
We're trying to get away from Star Trek.
Yeah, we want a different type of guy.
I don't know. I don't agree with it.
Yeah, that was actually the thing, because Abrams specifically was not Star Trek. I remember you see it shared around in a GIF a lot these days, but I remember when he was hyping the film, he went on the Daily Show and told Jon Stewart that, like, I was never a Star Trek fan. And
why say that? You know what I mean? Like, it's because people like me are sitting at home going, I'm gonna skip this one. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's not even good marketing.
Yeah, I remember watching the bonus features on the DVD, and he actually, like, I think he literally says, like, I wanted to make it like Star Wars or something. So,
well, mission accomplished. What do you guys think of the Remans?
They're cool.
I'm fine with the Remans.
Yeah. I wish they would have given Ron Perlman's character more to do than just come into a room and say, we have to start the procedure now.
He said that 10 times.
I was like, I think I'm going to have to start a tally, because literally every time he comes into a room, he's like, we have to start the procedure soon.
It's time.
But they look really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was Ron Perlman, to be honest.
Giving him a name would be a big start.
Yeah. Instead of just calling him the Viceroy the entire time.
Apparently in an early draft of the script, or just, it's not said on screen, it's Vkruk. Vkruk. So I don't even know how to say that, but...
Just rolls off the tongue.
And I guess they're psychic, or at least he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not care for Troy's another psychic assault, because she's already psychically assaulted in the series, and then they do it again here, and she asked for time off because it was traumatic, and Troy's just like, no.
Yeah. It's just like, if you can withstand these assaults, stay here.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
right.
And there's even a deleted scene of her being psychically assaulted by Tom Hardy again, and I thank God they cut that out.
And the third act of that little story is that she uses like psychic Ouija powers to find because every Star Trek film has to end with them searching for a cloaked ship and finding it somehow. So this time it's psychic Ouija power.
It was
holding Worf's hand on the thing.
Yeah, which is so weird. It's such a regression because, I mean, look, I don't want them to do these, but they're going to do these. So at least let's try to do them well, or just have the victim, get justice or something. But she beats that guy up when the guy does it in TNG to her, the Karen guy, she's trying to kick his ass before Worf walks in and just cold cocks the guy. So at least she has some presence, but yeah, it's just why they do this one more time for the last film of the series.
It would be less weird if there was a different, it'd make more sense for a different character to be no, you have to withstand it. But it doesn't really make sense that Picard would be like that. And then they throw it away. He's just no, you have to, can you withstand more? Okay, yeah, you're fine.
They never address
it off the ship.
Yeah. What's your rate meter at? If it's not full, then you're good.
Or maybe if he was it would make more sense for Picard to be all right, we got to get you out of here, and her to be no, I want to help you.
We got to stop this guy.
Yeah, whatever it takes. Yeah, but instead it's just Picard seems so nonchalant about it.
I do think that they are kind of an interesting race, though. Often when they're doing a new Star Trek film or a series, they try to reach in and find some element of the franchise that hasn't been expanded on, and picking, the long lost, never explained sister planet of Romulus was a good start, I think. I don't know why they're bad people, though. They're also really into knives. They've all got 1 million knives, and all of the knives are... His name's Gil Hibben or something like that. He's a knifeauteur, and he does all these weird... If you see an alien knife in a movie or an 80s action movie, it's probably him. And they, for the millionth time, use that knife that's got 2 blades. It's got a really thick blade, but it's split down the middle, so there's 2. It's all over TNG. You see it, and you see it on DS9 sometimes too. This blew me away. Isn't the plot of the next film in the franchise literally about a Romulan miner with a gigantic ship wreaking havoc on the Federation?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Isn't that literally the plot of Star Trek 2009?
It's they took the ship from this movie and said, make it spikier.
Literally.
Yeah. 2 lionfishes making out. That's good. And then get the guy from Black Hawk Down. Yeah, and then we'll just do that.
It's too much post-Nemesis Star Trek now. That is really concerned with Nemesis.
It's interesting because as they really, as big a failure as this film was, they certainly decided to base an entirely new series of Star Trek on it. I don't think you necessarily had to pick up Picard, with the end of Nemesis. It could have been about anything, but I think it's interesting that they saw that they needed to redeem this a little bit and at least maybe put a fourth act on it.
Well, if you look at all the covers for TNG movies, it's always got big Picard head and big Data head, and I think it's
big Picard head.
How are we going to make something about TNG and not have Data in it? So naturally, it's okay, Data's got to be involved, but he died. So what do we do? So it's it can't help but be based on Nemesis.
Oh, that's they're still stuck in that pattern.
Yeah, they're we got to talk about Data.
We need a beam going up into the sky. Yeah.
They shouldn't have had.
That's
Data.
That's a good theory. What they should have done was made the old guy who's Soong's son. That guy's lore, right? Come on. They're going to reveal his lore.
100%.
Well,
they have to.
That'd be cool. Or it'll probably
Where's
be
lore?
not cool, but that is cool.
Guys, let's talk about the Argo. Let's do it. We've waited long enough. It's a space dune buggy, and it comes in a shuttle that can only hold it. And honestly, if we're thinking about being efficient, shouldn't the shuttle just grow wheels? And that's the dune buggy. Why is there a dune buggy in this movie?
So they can ramp it off the... I guess it could ramp and then fly. Right.
So Picard can laugh a bunch, and then we cut to Worf being grumpy in the back, and it's funny.
Yeah,
that was the entire
he's such
gag.
a buzzkill.
They do love
it's
Worf, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so impractical. It comes out of the shuttle and almost flips over immediately. So first of all, not a wide wheelbase, not a great dune buggy. And then it has no windshield, so they have to wear goggles.
Yeah, why?
Yeah, I don't know if they're just trying to scare him, but Worf cannot hit with that cannon. He's missing everybody. He should have taken them all out.
They
got machine guns for
He's
crap's
probably
sake.
not trying to hit them, though, because, that would be interfering with another culture.
Yeah, they certainly interfere with another culture when they land on a planet they even say, oh, it's pre-warp. All right, let's get down there. Let's start shooting at the natives.
Yeah.
It's pre-warp, but they probably have seen a dune buggy before. This won't freak them out or anything.
Oh, no, I just checked. It's a pre-dune buggy society.
Oh, no. What do we do?
They only have F-150s, so change it up.
That planet, though, did pave the way for, the next decade of first-person shooters and, their color palette.
Yeah.
It looks like every brown game.
I was literally going to be like, please, the filter on those scenes. I can't.
Yeah.
So weird.
Or it's it's Planet Mexico. Every TV show that goes to Mexico,
sure.
They always use the sun filter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's it's all washed out. Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm trying to imagine a scenario where dune buggy could have been cool, and it's not this one, but maybe it
This
could.
seems like something Riker might get excited about. Maybe if Riker was doing it, if he was driving the dune buggy, doing martial arts and saying one-liners, I think that would have been the full package.
Riker goes home to Alaska. He's got a Hemi and, a gun rack in a truck or something like phaser rack in a truck.
Just give Riker a snowmobile.
And he's going around.
I think that would be cool. Or a four-wheeler or something.
Yeah, an ATV. We haven't talked much about the plot. We've talked about some elements of it. Does this plot make any sense?
No.
I kind of knew what was going on the whole time, sort of.
I was thinking that Shinzon must watch Star Trek because the whole reason that he gets B4 in the first place is so he can put him on a planet very close to the neutral zone, and they can pick up positronic signatures from his arm. I don't know how that works, and so the Enterprise goes to investigate it, and then when the crisis happens or they reach out diplomatically to the Federation, they're the closest ship. And I'm like, why wouldn't they send them anyway, even if they weren't close? They're ostensibly the flagship, and it's got the most experienced captain in Starfleet on it.
And they could always, specifically request him anyway. We will only talk to Picard.
Yeah, right. Only Picard can go to China.
Exactly.
Yeah, right, exactly. But instead they throw this other robot in.
It felt like they wanted to put B4 in there, and then they were just like, well, how do we connect it? Because we've got them going down on their dune buggy to get B4, and then he literally has nothing else to do except at the end, he's Data. How
That's
do we
a
connect
great
it?
point. Yeah, because
Well, he also has the thing where he betrays them to Shinzon, too. But yeah.
My, stupid brain was just going, why is B4 here? Why is he here? Why is he here?
Me too.
Oh, they put him here.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I went, okay, makes sense. And all consideration.
And then we forgot about it.
Yeah.
I was like, I forgot that they did that.
So, my thing with B4, is Data always emitting a signal that can be detected from, another star system?
Yeah.
What kind of...
That's a great point.
bandwidth or what power is on that transmitter? I mean, why?
Maybe that could be something they placed there too, but
to just
I don't know.
So, yeah, I mean,
part of the plan.
I mean, if it was if we found out that if Data gets in trouble, maybe he can flip a switch and he has a distress signal or something like that, and which was never established in the show, but just say it was, and then so. They detect a similar, oh my God, a positronic life form is in trouble on this planet. We have to go check it out. But it's all literally just for convenience. And even having B4 in the first place and then having the little swap with Data, which I guess is cool, but they've controlled Data before. Like, he's been controlled by, like basic programming when Dr. Soong makes him steal the Enterprise. Lauren manipulates him with emotions. Adding a whole new android is just the same thing with extra steps.
Yeah.
Yep.
And now you've got a character who is, you have to, do service to, and they do not do in the film, which is, it's just disappointing.
Yeah, they definitely reverse engineered him to be there.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we figured out if the plot made any sense or not, but do you guys know about the Star Trek film number curse?
Isn't it all the...
I disagree with it.
Oh,
The even numbered ones are good, odd numbered ones are bad?
right.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
Thad, what would be the standout one that makes you think that doesn't work?
I love Star Trek 3.
Okay. I think from the high heights of 2, it probably seems like it's, not quite as good. But...
Sure, I'll give you that, but I love it. Also, this one right here is a good example of how that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then if you continue on the numbering, that would make 09, 11, and Into Darkness 10, and I hate Into Darkness.
Yeah, it's a polarity reversal. Now the even ones are bad. Yeah. I just think it's interesting that I guess maybe when, because First Contact, is held to be good. And then this one comes out of nowhere and totally messes that up. So I'm not sure what would have caused that change if you believe in magic.
Didn't they know that when
the
making
way
this
you
movie?
said that, Aaron, you said First Contact is held to be good. Does that mean you don't think First Contact is good?
I think it's the best TNG film, but I get a more frisson out of, the best TOS films. I do like it though.
I have heard I think there's people of the opinion that like none of the TNG movies are like great, but I like First Contact. I like Generations. I like Insurrection. Actually, it's okay.
I also
Hey,
like
Mikey likes
Insurrection.
everything.
I am a huge Insurrection fan. It's not the best movie, not by a long shot, but I love it. It has heart.
Ella, do you think that Insurrection is passes muster?
Honestly, it has been so long since I watched these movies, genuinely. I don't know what that
sign.
speaks to for how much I care about them. First Contact is the one that was desperately trying to be like 2001, isn't it?
2001: A Space Odyssey?
Yeah.
No, that's a motion picture.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Wow, biffed it. Anyways.
No, I agree that First Contact is probably the best, and it puts the Borg to bed. I mean, we don't get like Voyager, I guess. So I biffed that one too, but it really goes in on the Borg, and I think the Borg are good when they're in little doses and when you're kind of on the outside. But like the introduction of the Queen and all that stuff, it all got pulled into Voyager. Like I don't really like those aspects of the Borg. But I mean, yeah, it's snappy. It's funny. It's good.
It seems like they can't quite, so many Star Trek movies, they can't quite get like the beat of a movie down, right? So it just feels like a weirdly long episode. Does that make sense? Like it just feels kind of off?
Yeah. It's kind of like what you said earlier about them being kind of like separate almost.
Yeah, they're just so detached.
And like I had completely it's been a while since I've seen First Contact, but I had completely forgotten that Geordi got optical like implants, and so when he turned around, I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
I think with like something like Khan, it was like it's like a movie like that is based on these like characters, but there wasn't a lot as compared to TNG, like as much to go on, and they really do kind of reinvent the characters somewhat. So they are like characters, but they're like written in a way to like work in a movie for the first time. Like it could work if these are your first time seeing the characters in a way. Whereas like in these, it's like it is. I mean, obviously, like the movies, a lot of them are competent, but it's like Picard. Like these are like it's kind of like going to see the Avengers almost, or it's like it's a big ensemble, and You want to see everyone get their moments and get their stuff in.
Yeah.
And you already know their deal. You know every detail about Worf that you could ever want to know, you know?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. You've seen him the most, I guess.
Yeah, it feels super like artificial.
I think it's partly because we, especially with TNG, we get, so many seasons of them like growing as characters and going through their arcs, and then their arcs come to an end and we're all happy. And it's weird seeing them brought back after their like character arc has ended and we're all finished seeing them. And then it doesn't really do anything. Like it doesn't really continue what they've learned, or they've regressed sometimes. It's just kind of weird.
That's one of the reasons that I really like, Wrath of Khan, but sometimes I feel like I like Undiscovered Country more because in Wrath of Khan, he's like, oh, I'm so old. What are you, like 48, but like when they actually get old, they kind of do that again in 6. And I don't know, I just feel those themes resonate, I think, more. And I can't count the number of times that Picard has had to confront his mortality, had to confront his lack of family, and they just kind of keep doing that. I kind of want to give them credit, though, for kind of continuing his arc from the last film, because, at the end of the last film, he's like, no, I feel young, and life begins at 80 or whatever I am now. And Picard's real jaunty in this film. Like, he's just kind of like, whatever, let's do this. I'm going to drive a car. We're going to go over here. And he's a very different Picard than we've seen in previous films.
Yeah, one of the deleted scenes is the new, like, some new officer comes on board, and Riker's like, and he's like, hey, Riker, I'm the new officer. Like, can you tell me anything about Captain Picard? And Riker's like, I got you, buddy. He is not a stickler for the rules. You can call him Jean-Luc. Yeah. And the guy's like, okay. And they all sort of chuckle. Yeah. Right. And Picard comes in, and the guy is like, oh, hey, Jean-Luc. And Picard just stares him down. And the guy's like, oh no, he was pulling my leg, wasn't he? But then Picard sort of goes on about his business, but he as he's turning, he sort of laughs to himself, which is that was a nice scene. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, and they were going to end the film with that.
That's true. I understand why. I saw them I was like, I get why this is a deleted scene.
Yeah, right at the end of that part, you might have seen this in a GIF or something, but this is where they introduce the seatbelts. There's the scene at the very end of the film where they have seatbelts, and the whole joke is Picard's like, it's about time.
Yeah,
and then
it's 30 seconds of look at this chair.
Look at this chair at the end of this film where your friend died, and the camera pulls out through the view screen, and they play the theme, and that was going to be the end of the film. There's no way that they were ever going to use that. I don't even know why they shot it. That guy, that XO that comes on, that's the stunt casting, right? That's where you make it Brad Pitt or something like that, and you get somebody, because that guy was a nobody. I'm no offense to him, but it's just some guy who's like, hey, I'm the XO, and it does not sound exciting. I don't want to watch the adventures of this guy.
Right.
We've talked about ways that this could be saved, but as we wrap up here, do any of you think you have a magic bullet? What would have really turned this thing around?
A different director.
Yeah.
Different director. I think that's a good suggestion. Frakes is like, I'm right here. I don't know why they didn't use Frakes.
They didn't use Frakes because they thought that Insurrection performed poorly, and compared to First Contact, it did, but it still did reasonably well. And I think that the expectation was that he was going to deliver another hit like First Contact, which I think just for a multitude of reasons wasn't going to happen. But I think if someone like Frakes had directed this, it could have been a much better story. I mean, obviously the script would be the same, but he would have done it in different ways and shot it in different ways and actually known what Star Trek is. And I think it could have been a decent movie.
I have to say, for as much as I complain about liking the militaristic elements and the technical stuff is the quote unquote wrong way to like Star Trek, it's about feelings and social issues and humanity, I did really like the last scene. It's a space battle where they actually thought about how the tactics would work and how would you fight a ship that's totally cloaked. They're they're targeting torpedoes on where the phaser hits, on the cloaked ship, and they're taking parts of the cloak off to try to draw other people in, and then like setting a snare for them. And it's totally boring, and it's not what I think you should like Trek for, but I did like that scene.
Fair.
Gooey, do you have a magic bullet to kill this vampire?
Yeah, I sort of agree with what's been said. I just think if you'd either simplified elements of what the story is about so you could focus more on some of the characters or something, maybe not have that big long battle as much. I don't know.
I love the battle.
Yeah, the battle is cool, but I don't know, maybe less. I think less. There's too many elements going on. I think maybe a different director, I would agree with that, maybe could have honed it down to something finer than that. Because like that's Khan was a good example, because it actually is like there's not a lot going on, and all the details are these finer points. It's just like a little bit sprinkled in here and there. But this is like there's elements that are just so big that you can't just not talk about them. Like B4 or Shinzan, or like you really want to know more, and instead it's.
Yeah, we don't want to blow through that stuff. Yeah.
So I would have cut some of that stuff.
And the last battle in Khan is, a lot less flashy than the one in this, but everything is spelled out for everybody. Usually it's bad when movies like talk down to you, but even the most casual viewer understands, okay, they can't see each other. They're going to try to get up behind each other. They're trying to use, the space to attack each other. Like it's all very clear and very tense and very exciting. Jen, as a avid purveyor of genre films, what do you think could have fixed this? I mean, I know you like it, but made it even better.
Yeah, I think it definitely could be better. I do think a different director, someone who had actually seen episodes of Star Trek, or even if they hadn't seen it, be open to watching it, and don't call LeVar Burton Laverne. Like, he just didn't even have any idea what was going on. I think that was part of it. And then I think there are some interesting bits there, focus on Picard's family leaving, and he sees Shinzon as his family he could still have. There's something there, but it was like they were trying to do like 15 million different things and do I know you like the battle sequence, but that 45-minute battle sequence, I was very surprised when the battle kind of started, and I paused it, and I was like, I'm only an hour and 6 minutes into this movie. There's still 45 minutes left, and I mean, it's long. So I think they could have trimmed that up.
Yeah. And I know people always want to see they always threaten ramming speed, but nobody actually rams anybody. And Gooey wants to see battle bots, but
yeah, if the Enterprise had grown fists, that would have been cool.
Yeah. I don't know what was behind the weird machismo of we're going to ram it into him. And then they ram it into him. And it's we're going to pull it out. And it's almost like this sexual flow sequence where they, I just, gross.
That's the Picard in this, though. He's tearing ass in the dune buggy. It's weird.
That's a tearing
ass.
In
the last 70s the new 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He's looking like John McClane in Insurrection. So I don't know.
It is tank top. Ella, put your media studies degree to work here and fix this film for us.
I mean, outside of just not necessarily a new director, an entirely new script, somebody had to fix the script. But I mean, personally, I think if they had just leaned into the melodrama action-y bits, if Riker had that line about hell is dark, and if they just leaned into that, then the visual looks of all the villains would make more sense, and it would be more fun to watch. I feel. I don't know. I feel like I say
it's almost like if it wasn't a Star Trek movie, it would have been better.
Yeah, I still would have been kind of bad, but it would be not painful. I don't know. I feel on Discovery, I'm always I love a bad movie that was made with love.
Yeah.
And this is just kind of a disappointing movie that wasn't really made with a lot of love, apparently.
Yeah, I think really going for it probably would have been better. Don't half-ass it. Go the whole way. Go down for what you believe in. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we didn't get that film. We got that in a way. We got that in the Kelvin universe, where they do kind of go for it, and delivered 3 sort of interesting, if uneven, films. But I think that pretty much does it for Star Trek Nemesis. Now that we've reached the end of the show, we could talk about space dads and space moms. And you've already talked about your favorite captains on previous shows. But what I want to know is this: how do you think your favorite captain would have dealt with Shinzon and the Romulan crisis? That if Janeway was on the Enterprise or on Voyager or a different ship, how would she have dealt with this?
Are we talking like a complete reversal where Shinzon is a clone to Janeway?
Oh my God!
Can you imagine?
Yes, we absolutely are. Yes.
I think Janeway would have destroyed her.
Janeway kind of hates herself, doesn't she? Or at least when she meets herself, she's not happy.
Yeah, no, I think Janeway would definitely come out on top here.
I don't care about the Romulan Empire. We gotta kill the other me. Jen, how do you think Janeway would have handled the political side? Or you can answer the Janeway clone side if you want to.
I think she would have just blasted him. She's really diplomatic sometimes, but other times I think sometimes she's diplomatic to a fault, and then other times she'll just blast him. I think she would have just blasted him.
She would have had that. So I'm assuming that maybe some of the affection or just grossness that Shinzon throws onto Troy, maybe he threw onto her, and so they're having dinner, and she'd be trying to make diplomatic overtures, but he'd just keep trying to touch her hair or something, and then at some point it'd be like, all right, we're done, and she just goes back to the ship, and it's all red alert after that.
Right. But she also, she took in 7 of 9. She might just be like, no, Shinzon, you're my son now. You're my daughter now. You're 7
I need another scorpion. Yeah, right.
I need a new child.
Yeah, 7 and 9's gone. Ella, what about you? The day I asked you, I think you landed on Sisko as being your favorite captain. So how would Sisko have dealt with this?
Oh, I forgot that I had said that. But I think the reason why I said that is because of the scene where he punches Q.
Yeah, right.
That came to mind, he just would have socked him. He would have been done right away.
He punches Shinzon, and maybe he cuts his hand and they get the blood, and that's all we need to do right there.
I think Shinzon would have been more easily to deal with if he had Sisko just being like, no, I'm not going to deal with you. I will punch you out. Because Shinzon was kind of acting like a crybaby the entire time.
Oh, he just needs a dad. Yeah, there you go.
Dad.
He needs discipline.
A firm authority figure.
You didn't learn discipline working in a mine. Yeah. Gooey, I think the last time that we talked about this, you were like half Picard, half Sisko.
I have some to add with Sisko because you talked about how Picard wouldn't worry too much about it, which I agree with. Sisko, it wouldn't even be a thing. He would be like, "You're me," and Sisko would be like, "No, we're not the same person. The premise is not true." And then actually, there was some parts of the movie where Shinzon was talking about I will forever be the shadow of Picard. And it's like, you don't have, no. What about your life has been? I guess you were thrown on a planet because you couldn't replace him. But I don't know. They didn't get that idea across. But if young Sisko was Shinzo, if he was I'm you, and then Sisko was like, no, you're not. Maybe that'd make him even more mad and more menacing, no, I'm you.
Yeah, you're not me, I'm me. I wonder if in the execution of the Dominion War, Sisko would have made friends and allies, post-Vreenak, of course, on Romulus, and then hearing that they had all been killed mysteriously by someone would have put him more on edge. He'd be sort of in Sisko vengeance mode.
You could get that one guy to go to the clone of him and go, he's a fake.
Oh, I know what old Vreenak would say right now. You're a fake. What would the musician Sisko do in this situation?
Musician Sisko.
The thong song guy.
Oh, wow. He's got, in one of the videos, he's got the Big Show, the professional wrestler, as a background actor. Yes. I think he'd get him to do his dirty work.
Well, now that we've reached the end of the show, and for the dangerous and heroic work you've all done tonight, each of you will receive a promotion to the rank of Lieutenant Commander, and you'll be getting first officer positions on your own ships, which, of course, I expect you to stay on until the entire franchise falls apart. Riker gets married in this film, of course, to Troy, and he gets command of the Titan. What could make you finally leave your first officer position? Thad, what about you?
I wouldn't even want to be first officer, but...
You'd immediately jump ship.
Yeah, I'd rather just fix the stuff. But probably I don't know. I would never want to be a captain, so nothing.
I guess it's like the vice president, isn't it? Because you're always a heartbeat away from having to be in charge of the whole show. So it is a lot of responsibility. Elle, if you had been a first officer for a long time, what would make you finally give up that position?
Marrying Janet Troy.
Yeah.
No doubt.
There's another, well, they say it in the film, but I think there's another scene that was deleted that does more, but they talk about how they have to bring a new counselor on. And they say she. And a woman, of course, can be a counselor, but you can't have a guy counselor in the 24th century. Come on.
Well, what is the guy going to wear? Low cut?
Yeah, who's going to be thirsty on the ship?
Really big hair.
Welcome to the ship. Here's your wardrobe.
I would really love if they brought the new counselor on and it looked just like Deanna Troi from the back. It's same super, make him wear the super low cut thing, giant hair, and then he turns around and he's
permed.
Beautiful man.
That's the counselor uniform. I don't care what Jellicoe right. says.
Yeah. Jellicoe's old school. Gooey, what about you?
I too would never actually want to be captain, but I guess if I could get a ship that is just a giant pair of Hulk hands that I go around punching out other ships,
right?
I'll do it.
Yeah.
The USS Banner.
I want to see that. Jen, how about yourself?
I don't want to be captain. That's
you guys. Wow,
that is
a lot of foot soldiers.
Way too much responsibility.
It is.
I mean, especially when we see anytime something goes wrong in the show, Starfleet does not have their backs. They're always you're out.
Yeah, that's wow. They make it look really easy though too. But yeah, I don't think a lot of people think about the incredible responsibility of having to do that. I mean, having a pet is enough for me. Well, Commanders Dallman and Fame and Pearson and Hait, thanks for joining me to talk about Star Trek and the Star Trek universe. If people want to continue the conversation, and they can, at EISTpod on Twitter and the Enterprising Individuals Facebook page, where can people find you all online? Jen, where can people find you online?
You can go check us out at Rosemary's Ladies podcast on Instagram. We have a Twitter. We're not really active on Twitter, so go just check us out on Instagram.
Great. Gooey, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter at Gooey Fame, and I post about all my other shows and stuff there, so just go find me there.
On Twitter. Ella, where can people find you online?
At Generations Geek on social media and wherever you listen to podcasts, and tomorrow night on Discoverage.
Awesome. And Thad, what about you?
Best place to find me is on Twitter. I'm at Tyrannicus. That's Tyranicus.
Awesome. I wanted to mention that on the most recent episode of Enterprising Individuals, I sit down with Dr. Mohammed Noor, who's the Dean of Natural Sciences at Duke University and a Star Trek science consultant, and we discussed the Star Trek Voyager episode, Favorite Son, and Dr. Noor gave me all the facts on the genetic science we see in the episode and other episodes of Star Trek. Slight spoiler, not actually too realistic, but not quite out of the realm of implausibility. It's a great chat. You can find it by going to enterprisingindividuals.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again to my guests for joining me. Thanks to the audience at home. Hope you're doing well in 2020. Stay healthy, stay safe. Hope to see you again in 2021. We're signing off until the next mission. Hailing frequencies closed.
Your Honor, a courtroom is a crucible. In it we burn away irrelevancies until we are left with a pure product, the truth, for all time.
Oh man, this is so intense. Data's on trial for his life.
I know. This episode, The Measure of a Man, is based on the Supreme Court's Dred Scott decision of 1857.
And every week on Backtracking, we take a look at the real-world events that inspired classic Star Trek episodes. Sorry. Shut up! Shh.
Who are you?
We're the hosts of Backtracking. I'm Caliban.
You will both be taken to the brig and from there to the nearest starbase, where you will answer charges for what you have done.
And I'm Gooey Fame.
This is not a game. This is life and death.
You can follow us on Twitter.
Backtracking is available wherever you listen to podcasts.
You go f*** yourself.